Welcome to the Cerius Leadership IQ series. If you have attended one of these sessions in the past, welcome back. If this is your first interaction with Cerius, we're glad you're here. Simply put, at Cerius, we build leadership teams for companies large and small in all industries all over the world. We're able to deliver on that because of the leaders in our network. These are the client-focused, results-oriented individuals you want on your leadership team. If you are one of these type leaders, there's an entire ecosystem for you here at Cerius. The link for our executive resource page is in the chat box if you'd like to learn more. If you run or own a business, there's an entire ecosystem for you as well. I could tell you all about it, but I'm pretty biased, so it's better if you hear it from our clients directly. The link to what our clients have to say about how we've helped their businesses in the past is also in the chat box as well. I've been looking forward to today's conversation since it landed on my calendar. Sales are a pivotal part of every business. The late, great Zig Ziglar said that nothing happens in the world until somebody makes a sale. Specifically, to talk about the 3 mistakes leaders make when building their sales team, I want to introduce the president of Cerius, Kristen McAllister.
Hi, thank you for joining us today. And I have Kevin Juza joining us. Seriously, we really like to focus on the expertise and the challenges that leaders solve. And Kevin's expertise and I want to say superpower is building sustainable sales teams. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Chris, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for the invitation.
We are, and you and I have gone back and forth, you knowing that is my kryptonite. We've gotten into a lot of really fun conversations about kind of how to manage them, build them, and sometimes find the person other than you to do all of this. We've got a lot to go through in a short period of time, so let's get started. I know I've gotten into a lot of conversations recently with our clients. Normally it's about talent, I can't find talent. Right now I got a headwind. I got a headwind coming at our sales team's backs. I got to do something different. I need to go build a sales team. Why is this such a struggle for most of us? Getting a team that works well, accomplishes the goals, and goes out and build and sell stuff.
I would say the first thing when I sit back and I talk to sales leaders about what their plan is, and the plan isn't there. It's like their plan is designed around, I need business, I need money, I need. And when you create a plan in the position of needing something, it doesn't come out strong, and it doesn't show the confidence it takes for the salespeople to get behind it and all the operations to support it. But if you come with a plan, a vision of this is where we're going, here's the ICP, the ideal client profile we're going after, this is what we're shooting for to build that momentum, people get behind a plan. And as long as the plan has a true ramp period, execution, follow through, and they let it all the way through the cycle. What typically happens in sales, if after 2 months or 2 weeks it isn't working, let's change it. And and you have to build on success.
That's my secret. If it's not working, we got to move fast, fail fast, and 2 weeks, of course, I should be seeing the results. I'm investing, right?
Well, fail fast is great mentality, but you have to fail fast and keep moving forward. You can't fail fast and then stop and then say, okay, let's rebuild the engine again. You have to continuously learn and adapt and move forward with your plan. A plan doesn't mean it's in stone and concrete. A plan has to be evergreen and be able to grow and develop while you learn. You find out your cadences, your emails aren't effective. You're testing A and B. Well, then switch if B is working better than A, and then have another iteration to try a C, and kind of keep going to masterize and always continually improve, but not get off the plan.
So when you look at a plan, what are some of the keys to a successful plan when you're building a sales team? Let's get to the real juicy stuff right up front. Keys to success.
I'd say number one is the engagement of the team. Who do you have on your team? Are they there for the team, or are they there for themselves? And if you have a sales team that's built around the team's success, they all work together, they're collaborative, they're sharing best practices, or do you have a bunch of silos trying to reach their quotas so they get more money themselves? I love competitive people and salespeople that want commissions. I love that. That's not a problem. But if it's a detriment of the team's growth and success, then there's a problem. That's number one, is your team. Number two is really having the systems in place where people are always willing to show their failures and grow from them. A coach, a manager who's more of a coach than a person that's back there with the title whip and go, 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 it doesn't work these days. I could say it probably never really worked for the long-term success. But in the sense of motivating your team and knowing who they are and really engaging with them and their skills.
Fine. You talk about motivation and teamwork. So when I think a salesperson, I want someone with a lot of confidence who is focused on making their numbers. You're saying it can't just be about their numbers. It's about the team. How do you build that team ethic or that team camaraderie?
It's kind of like when you have that person that's leading the numbers, you're always going to have a person. You got to have somebody out front. You got to have somebody for people to chasing for a team culture. You got to have that rabbit for everybody to be going after. So nothing's wrong with that, but is that rabbit sharing what they're doing, and people can try to figure out in their own way how to replicate what they're doing. Are they in that silo, not sharing their secrets? People will hear the secrets and go, I don't want to do it that way. That's their choice, but at least they're sharing and elevating everybody up.
Love it. So having some type of a leaderboard, something visible to the entire team, sounds like can be a big help.
Dashboards are awesome. But when I look at dashboards, I look at their connections, not always the results, because if you build at the beginning of a pyramid, if your foundation is strong, the top will come. Same thing goes with sales. If you start the foundation of connections with prospects, connections with the people who are interested in figuring out the ICP and just building those relationships, that's long-term will bring you consistent results.
When you look at that consistency, and you mentioned coaching as part of that, you've got to consistently be coaching them on that process. It takes a very special kind of person that can do that coaching, that can coach a sales team and has the patience, me not included, I want the 2 weeks, patience. What does a day in the life of a sales leader look like? So as we're all evaluating, are we the right person to be doing it? Do we have the right person leading and building that sales team? What does their day look like?
Well, the first person, the person in charge of the team, I'll say that, leave the title flexible for what size organization you have. But their first thing to do is look at their number. You have to look at your numbers, your data. There has to be data behind your decisions of how you're going to react that day. So did enough activities go out? What were the response to those activities? And then from that data, knowing what's working and what's not, you then break up and speak to your team, making sure there's also personal connections with those conversations, but then driving down to figuring out what worked and what didn't work. I love sales leaders that actually sit there and listen to the phone calls, that actually interact with the actual, recording the fight and listening to it and celebrating the successes and asking for ways to improve and getting them to think through themselves, how could I get better? And then having everybody listen to each other can also elevate a good, consistent impact of your sales strategy.
I've heard that recently, when coaching within a team is having them coach each other, having them listen in on, having them act as the client. So you're saying have other sales individuals listen to calls and coach. Sometimes when you step out of the box, it's easier to see the picture.
Definitely. It's like my daughter. Best leaders are ones who I believe have raised a child, or at least and figured out how to do this. I work with my daughter, who's on the soccer team in Poway, and she wants to get more play time, but she's not on the field directing people, sharing what her vision is. She's a captain. She needs to tell people where to go, but having that mentality of where everybody's playing on the field, who's doing the strength, we're doing the right skills and doing the right things. If every salesperson is doing that for the team will rise. The results will be consistent, and they'll be more fun. If you have one happy salesperson and the others 5 or 6 are stressed and negative, it ain't going nowhere. But if you create that collaborative environment and you're all celebrating, I don't know if you watched the last Monday Night Football game last night, but the Cleveland coach is saying you have to celebrate after every play. That's good. If there's something good, celebrate it. Same thing in a sales environment. You have to bring celebration for every good thing they do.
I've answered a lot of questions on webinars and podcasts, and last night's game is not one that whether I watch will not be a question I ever answer. I know we get into that. So when looking at that sales leaders, I'm waking up in the morning, I'm looking at all my numbers, I'm digging in, I'm listening to all the calls from yesterday, I'm coaching, I'm giving them feedback. Anything else that I should be focused on each day?
Connections with your salespeople, especially in this more remote environment. You have to make sure you're connecting with your people, giving them phone calls, sending them personal connections with people. Salespeople need to feel loved and feel appreciated more than they need to feel stress or pressure of results. Because since a lot of them are remote now, you have to make sure they feel part of the team, because when they're 8 hours of the day, no one's around them. So how are they going to work? Are they invested in the results of the organization because they like my boss? And people leave because they don't like their boss, or they don't like the sales culture type of thing. Well, fix that by just getting to know them and remembering them. I always have like a recipe card for each people on my team. And in that recipe card, it tells me what they like. What's their Starbucks Coke, the drink they like to drink? What's their favorite candy bar? What's their favorite lunch? Whatever type of things you realize, or are they married? Are they not? Do they have kids? Do they have dogs? Who they are, and have it on a little recipe card to help you remember when you're talking to them. What can you talk about? Or if they did something great, mail them a Snickers bar. And all of a sudden, in the middle of the day, they get a Snickers bar mailed to them, and they're like, "Oh, this is really cool." You really engage with them even though they're remote.
I love it. And there's a lot of work there, especially sitting there and listening to the phone calls and how to coach. And you've confirmed my role in life is not to be a teacher, and it's not to be a sales leader. That takes a very special skill set to listen in on those calls daily, looking at the numbers, getting into that cadence, and then giving feedback. When you let's just flip the scales a little bit. What does the day look like for the salesperson? How do I know? Because you've mentioned in the past in our conversations that building a sales team doesn't stop at the hire, it starts at the hire. Right. You've got some ramp time. What type of routine as a sales leader am I helping to enable?
So at the first cycle of that, I always say you're always building your bench as a leader. If you have an opening or not, you should always be looking for the next person you'd bring in on your team. Because as a leader, if you know you have people in your pipeline to come in, you won't be stressing if you ever have somebody that tries to leave or not, or you try to keep them because you don't want them to leave. Well, if you have people on your bench, you're not going to. So if you don't want to be here no more, and this is the right place for you, you can't sell my product. So let's move on so I can find somebody who will be on my product. So that's number one. Number two, you have your onboarding stage. This is the first impression a salesperson has of the organization. Do I have my tools? Do I have a true learning ramp to get to where I need to be? Do I have to start delivering results on day one? Or is there truly a step-by-step building of the skills to be successful here? Because if you make a person run before they actually crawled or walked, they miss steps and they're just going to be sloppy down the road. So you really build out the ramps to get them to where they want to go. And the day in the life of the salesperson starts with them having that rigor of what they need to do every day. It's building the muscle gap of that they go in and they know what that rigor is.
And we're all different. Some of us are more morning people, we're afternoon people. What are kind of the key elements that they should be doing each day? And then you as a sales leader helping them figure out what time of day makes most sense for them.
Right. What I've learned is the hardest thing of the day you should do first. And so this person's skill set, whatever the hardest thing, because the brain power is the strongest when they're most well rested. And so if you get what's the hardest for them to do done in the morning, they don't think about, oh my gosh, I got to do this at 2. I got to do this at 2. And they waste so much emotional energy thinking about that. So most of the time it's phone calls. Phone calls get in the way of most salespeople. No salesperson likes them, even though they might be the best at it. It's still, I gotta start dialing. Oh, I don't want to do that. But you get it done right away. You get that first step of calling in the phone as quick as possible, because in the rest of the time, it's easier to get back into that motion if you started it early.
What's then coming after that? Walk me through the next steps.
Sir, when they come into their business, they have hopefully at the end of the day, you set up your list of the people you're going to attack today, your first connection. So you start with your list and you start them in the cadence cycle or your process. And then after that first cadence, usually it's a connection in social media, which establishes some sort of a connection of let them know awareness of who you are. And then you follow up with an email and a phone call, or a phone call and email, however strategy your team creates. But you get them on the phone. You're doing maybe 15, 20 phone calls within the first hour and a half of their day. Because they get there, they might get a success, they might get something hot, they might get something to help them fill their gap of time the rest of the day. And then from there, they assess their cadence, what tasks are set up for this day to follow all the other people that are in different paths to the success, and they're able to then connect to people along the way. Hopefully in the afternoon, they have their meetings or follow-ups, meeting one-on-ones with clients, or calling back their connections from previous weeks to keep them engaged.
Oh, you keep talking about a cadence and a process. To me, you've got to have an environment to be able to foster that. Because if I'm throwing different tasks and questions and I need you to do this and I'm taking them off of that cadence, I feel like I'm just torpedoing them on a daily basis. How do you foster an environment where a great sales team can thrive?
I believe it comes down to your CRM, your client relations management tool system that you use to track everything you're working, because a salesperson has a lot of people in a different cadence step along their way to success. Maybe the first outreach to the 15th outreach, where do they all land? But you have to have a nice tool that gives you the reporting and the visibility of who you've talked to and where they are in that building of relationships with them. And the number one thing is really managing the connections. If you think of a salesperson, if they can make 5 new connections every day, that's 25 in a week, that's 100 in a month, that's 300 connections in a quarter. If they don't have a pipeline of connections that then build that daily awareness and meetings, and it really starts getting strong for them when they focus on connections.
It's just that it multiplies out.
Yep.
One right after another. I know a lot of times you've talked about transparency, and we've talked about the dashboard, the CRM. How important is it to have those calls with the salesperson? Here's what's expected of you. Here's where you're at. I've heard different opinions on it.
Well, I always use a dashboard as a place to celebrate, not a place to beat up people. Because if they feel like it's punitive, these results, hey, your numbers are down, get up there, get your calls up, they are going to take that as it's a bad thing. But if you look at it always as a positive way to show you as basically checking your temperature, what's the temperature of the day? How are we moving towards our goals for the day? And you use it all throughout the day. People will see it as a tool to say, hey, great job. I see you're already at your calls for the day and your result, you got 5 connections. Great job. People then know it's a tool to really show transparency among the team. And also, if your team uses it going, I'm done, well, let me call Sheila. She's having difficulty today, and reaching out to help them with their numbers. And they look at it as a way to tool to help each other and communicate what's going on.
So there's a certain culture that you're building there. I can't imagine salespeople have a low self-esteem. When you're looking at who's the right person for my sales team, are you looking at confidence, bravado, someone who has kissed the Blarney Stone one too many times? What are you looking for?
Now, don't tell anybody this. Do they have curiosity? When they come to an interview, do they have questions for you? Do they have questions? Do they listen to what you say and then have a follow-up question? If they interview looking to try to impress you with their answers, great. But what are their questions? Because a salesperson, first thing they need to do is build, rapport with somebody, but also feel, listen to, and ask great questions to the person. I was just had a call, a third party called me yesterday, and they're like, so I see you just got on our website. Would you like to buy some more? I'm like, That's going straight to let's get married. No, be curious. Why did I go to the website? What was I looking for? Tell me more about it. And you're getting people to relax and share. That's the number one thing a salesperson's got to be able to do.
I love it. I've got a note here, a couple questions on tools and CRM. Sorry to backpedal a little bit, but why don't we drop in, there's a LinkedIn post that I've got out there where we talk about, or we'll talk about some of the tools, sales enablement tools, engagement tools. I've got a note here. It says, how are you listening to these phone calls? How are you recording them? Kevin, I have no doubt you'll go on, offer some of your recommendations. We probably have at least one or two other sales experts on the call. Please, let's continue the conversation, and we'll get to those tools and some of the technology on the LinkedIn post offline, because I still have a number of questions here I want to make sure that we hit. And that is I pulled a couple of CEOs, some of the clients that we have. So what are some of the biggest questions that you would have if you were interviewing a sales leader? Maybe some of the mistakes you've made and which direction you should have gone in, or have times changed. So let me get to a few of these. And they said, I go back and forth between promoting my best salesperson. I'm the owner. I don't want to lead sales anymore. I really prefer to promote from within to lead my sales team. It makes sense. I'm going to promote my best performer.
Well, I don't, unless the top performer is in a culture of supporting others more than supporting themselves, then promote that person. But typically, your best person to hire or promote is your second to third person on your ranking sheet, because they're basically probably doing more things for the team and around the team to make the team work well for you. So they're probably the person that you would promote. You'd probably make that top salesperson the senior salesperson and help them be a mentor for others, still giving their ego, like, I didn't become manager, oh hum, to say, okay, we're moving this person here, but you're now going to be a mentor for all the new people coming in, and we're going to give you this kind of spiff to kind of help you there. There's a way to make sure you promote from within without ruining the ego of the number one salesperson, because they love the win, the smell, the victory. And so that's kind of where I look at that.
And only you can truly understand that mentality and how to care for that. And I would hope that when you have that conversation of promotion, asking their opinion of, we understand that we're asking to promote you above this individual. What are your thoughts on how to care for that individual, how to make sure we keep that individual? I'd be curious as to what their thoughts are and their abilities to be able to work through that.
Or the person who's jumped ahead of everybody else, or the person,
Yes.
Person who got promoted, personally, I believe it's good to have a coach for them, or some sort of support that's outside the group that's not connected to the group. So a mentor within the organization, or an outside person that can come in and be a coach for them just for a couple months to help them. That first 90 days makes an impact. And the first thing they have to do is really elevate themselves to a leadership type of role. And if you've done, over time, you've seen them already do team kind of things, it should be a pretty smooth transition. But it's really getting them to start showing them as a servant leader, helping people get their goals. When they start showing them the tools, or here's something to try, do this, and then celebrating their successes, they start to quickly trust them that they can do what they need to do to help them elevate their success.
Perfect. There's a couple more I want to get to before we wrap this up. The other question is, especially when you're promoting someone within, what's your opinion on they keep a book of business and a book of clients as well as they're leading the salespeople? It's kind of a split role.
When you're startup, I guess that can be a good place. Personally, a manager without a quota is a better manager, because a manager that your job is to have other people hit commission. Your job isn't for you to hit commissions. It kind of makes the intentions of the person's heart kind of be like, well, do I really keep this one, or do I give it to somebody else? No, your job is to get everybody on your team to be more successful. And so you elevate everybody else's commissions up, and they will work better for you. A manager needs to be in a more of a supportive, coach. You don't see a football coach get on the team on the field and start throwing passes or catching a ball or running with it. No, or making a sack. No, that's not what they do. They're on the sidelines, listening, watching, and coaching, and helping people get better.
My favorite question, so it's come up a lot recently, is when you are building that sales team, when you're interviewing, industry experience or no industry, how critical is they need to come with the book of business, they need to understand my industry?
Two things. One, I don't agree with that, because I want somebody to come in curious about the customer and about the industry, that they'll actually learn about it. If they've been successful selling cell phones, can they come over and now sell big servers and IT databases and cloud? Yeah, because they'll have questions. They were successful here selling something outside of the group, but now they're going to come in humble and wanting to learn so they can best help their customer. So their ramping will be more dedicated to your product and your solution. And then when they get people on the phone, their whole goal is to get curious about how can they help them? How can they bring value with this new product? And number two is that at sense of that book of business, they're not going to use it until they know the boss is going to keep them around, that it's a safe place to work. Is the customer service as good as the last place? They're not going to open their book of business for at least a year to two until they truly know, I'm going to be here a while, so I'll bring my customers in here.
It's some great lessons learned from personal experience. So just to wrap it up and do a recap, we talked about 3 mistakes and traps to avoid when building a business. What of all the things that we've talked about, what would you say are the 3 biggest mistakes to avoid?
Well, 3 biggest mistakes to avoid is, number 1 is making sure you have a staffing plan, making sure you have that people on board ready to go. And if they move, you're not stressed. You have another person ready to come up there. So having a true staffing plan. Number 2 is making sure you have the connection between results and process, and making sure as a leader, you're connecting your plan, your game plan, to how your dashboards are. So everything is aligned and you're kind of moving through a play and a process. Third connection would probably connect to, are you a strategic person or are you coaching? If you're a strategic person, elevate yourself to executive and bring somebody in who can be a coach, who can be there in the field with them, helping them coaching, but having that mindset and the heart of helping others grow and develop.
Kevin, thank you. And I appreciate that as most of us think, well, the head of sales is my strategic individual as well as the individual leading the team. And you've really done a great job of making it clear that one of the biggest mistakes we start with is we don't have a plan and then we don't work the plan. And part of working that plan is the coaching. It's that day in and day out. And as sales leaders, need someone, I've learned, patience, more patience than raising a child, and I have a 10-year-old son, so you can imagine how much stock I put into patience, as well as that coaching, that feedback, having those candid conversations. Some of us are built for it, some of us aren't. If you are looking for some additional resources on either the planning, the coaching portion, maybe assessing the team or the leadership that you have, Cerius is full of amazing resources like Kevin, who can come in, offer an objective point of view, and stay on to assist, or you may have the individuals inside and they just need the plan to execute. Thank you so much, Kevin. Again, join us on LinkedIn to continue the conversation, maybe offer your recommendations on CRMs, listening, phone call tools, all of the sales enablement that I know we can spend millions of dollars, and you probably have some recommendations, affordable recommendations to be able to shortcut that. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin, and for everyone else giving us part of your day.